Dad booted me from the pension party table claiming blood relatives exclusively. Yet when they handed me the massive restaurant bill, I bolted, and now everyone's begging for cash. Be me. Always been the odd one out in my family. My brother Derek took the college route and got a shiny engineering career. I dropped out after a semester, got my CDL and built a business from a truck cab. Dad never missed a chance to call me a disappointment. Last month they invited me to Dad's retirement dinner at some overpriced steakhouse. Thought maybe they wanted me there for once. Nah, they didn't. Buckle up. I'm 34 years old male. Have been on the road for almost 16 years. Started as a company driver making shit money, sleeping in truck stops and missing every holiday. Back then I was pulling in maybe $41,000 a year, while dealing with dispatchers who treated us like disposable parts. The cab of my first assigned truck smelled like 3 decades of cigarettes and fast food. But I had a plan. I saved every penny. Lived like a monk in a $550 a month efficiency apartment. Cinder block walls and a shower that barely fit my 6'3" frame. Eventually bought my own rig. A used Kenworth T680 with 820,000 miles that I fixed up myself. Then another. Now I own a small fleet of 9 trucks. Employ 14 drivers plus 4 office staff. Clear good money after expenses, fuel costs, maintenance, and payroll. Not bad for a dropout disappointment. My trucking business didn't happen overnight. I spent 6 years driving for others before saving the $52,000 down payment for my first used rig. I took night classes in business management at the community college. Not that my family bothered to notice. I researched the most profitable routes, specialized in refrigerated goods which pay better rates, built a reputation for on-time deliveries. Eventually I secured contracts with regional distributors, who didn't want to deal with the headaches of fleet maintenance and driver management. My best friend Tyler saw it coming from day one. Back when everyone else was laughing at my truck driver phase, he was the only one who got it. "These assholes don't understand business," he'd say bluntly. "They think success only comes with a piece of paper on the wall." Tyler runs an auto repair shop across town. Has the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Exactly why we've been tight since high school. We played offensive line together. He was left guard, I was left tackle. We protected our quarterback like our lives depended on it. That mentality carried over after graduation. 3 years ago I adopted Rex, a German Shepherd from a rescue. Some jackass abandoned him when he moved out of state. He's with me almost everywhere. Riding shotgun in the F450, sleeping at the office, the works. Best decision I ever made. When you've dealt with family like mine, having something around that's actually loyal makes a difference. Rex has become the unofficial mascot of my company. My drivers bring him treats. The ladies in the office spoil him rotten. My clients always ask about him. He's got better social skills than I do, honestly. And he's got a sixth sense about people. If Rex doesn't like you, there's usually a good reason. Meanwhile, my brother Derek, 41 years old male, followed the right path. Got his engineering degree, married Lisa, his college sweetheart. They have 2 kids, a boy and a girl ages 9 and 7. Perfect American dream, right? Derek makes around $95,000 working for some corporate firm downtown. He's got the 4,200 square foot house in the suburbs, with a $3,100 monthly mortgage, the leased BMW X5 he can barely afford, and about $47,000 in credit card debt he doesn't talk about. Dad thinks he walks on water. Every Christmas, Derek makes a big show of the family vacation they just took, or the new golf clubs he bought. But I've seen his credit card statements when he left them on the counter once, while I was at their house. Minimum payments across the board. The guy is drowning in debt, but keeps up appearances like his life depends on it. My parents are pieces of work themselves. Dad, 65 years old male, spent his life as a middle manager at a manufacturing plant, always complaining about being passed over for promotion. His favorite phrase is, "I would have been VP if it weren't for office politics." Yeah, sure, nothing to do with his mediocre performance and tendency to take credit for other people's work. Mom, 63 years old female, worked part-time at a dental office, mostly spending her time gossiping about the patients and judging people based on their medical conditions. They both got that boomer mentality, where they think they worked harder than anyone else, despite having it easier than any generation since. Dad loves telling stories about how he paid for college by working summers. Conveniently leaves out that college cost about $600 a semester back then. Mom brags about buying their first house at 24. Doesn't mention that it cost 3 times their annual salary, not the 9 to 11 times it costs young people today. Over the years, our relationship went from bad to worse. Every time I visited, which wasn't often, Dad would make these backhanded comments about my career choice. "I saw one of those big rigs jackknife on the interstate," he'd say during dinner. "Guess that's the kind of thing that happens when they let anyone get a CDL these days." Or he'd talk about Derek's new promotion in front of me, then ask if I'd considered going back to school. What they didn't know or chose to ignore was that while Derek was living paycheck to paycheck in his McMansion, I was quietly building something substantial. My fleet brings in $2.1 million in gross revenue. I've got commercial contracts with 4 major distributors. A real estate portfolio of 5 rental properties that generates $6,200 in monthly passive income, and a 7-figure investment account. My sister-in-law Lisa knew, though. She'd drop hints sometimes about their financial struggles when Derek wasn't around. Derek had to take a cash advance to pay for Tommy's soccer camp, she once told me. Or we're thinking of refinancing again to consolidate some debt. Funny thing is, I've actually bailed them out more than once. When Derek's mortgage was underwater during the housing crisis, I loaned him $18,000. Never mentioned it again. When Dad's transmission went out in his precious Cadillac, I covered the $5,300 repair bill. When Mom needed dental work not covered by insurance, I handled the $3,700 without a word. When Derek's kid needed emergency surgery, and their insurance had a $6,000 deductible, guess who covered it? They conveniently forgot these moments when it came time to respect what I'd built. That's how families operate, Tyler told me once while we were watching a game. They'll take your help but still treat you like garbage. It's the Thompson family special. He wasn't wrong. I've also got a half-sister, Kelly, 28 years old female, from Dad's brief affair back in the day. Mom took him back but always treated Kelly like shit. Kelly and I actually get along great. She's a tattoo artist who never bought into the family's bullshit either. She's the only one I keep in regular contact with. For the past 5 years, I've barely seen any of them. Last Christmas, I sent gifts for the kids but didn't show up for dinner. Kelly came to visit me on the road once or twice. That was it. I was too busy building my empire to deal with their crap. My blood pressure literally dropped 18 points after I stopped regular contact, according to my doctor. Then last month I got the call. Dad was retiring. They were having this exclusive family celebration at the Capitol Grill, supposedly the fanciest place in town. Mom called, then Derek, then Mom again. Kelly texted me saying, "They're being weird about this dinner. I think they're up to something." I should have listened to her. But like an idiot, I thought maybe, just maybe, they actually wanted to patch things up after 16 years of their bullshit. I still had this small hope they might eventually see me as something other than a failure. I pulled up to the Capitol Grill in my F450 Platinum, 6.7L Power Stroke diesel, 1,050 pound-feet of torque. Custom flatbed in the back for hauling parts when needed. Cost me $91,000 cash, no financing. Rex sat in the passenger seat looking at me like he knew what was coming. I told him to stay and crack the windows. He'd be fine for a couple hours. The valet gave my truck the once-over. A mixture of respect for the vehicle and confusion about the guy driving it. He wasn't sure if I was someone important in work clothes, or just some contractor who took a wrong turn. I handed him the keys and told him to park it somewhere visible. It's got a security system that gets triggered easily, I lied. I just wanted it where I could see it from inside. Trust issues maybe, but they've served me well. The valet gave me a look like I was delivering supplies to the kitchen. Whatever. I've seen that look my whole adult life. People assume I'm just some uneducated grunt who moves things from point A to point B. They don't realize I run complex logistics operations, manage a multi-million-dollar business, and make more in a month than most of them do in a year. Their ignorance isn't my problem. Inside, I spotted them at a large table in the center of the restaurant. Dad was holding court, loudly talking about his legacy at the company. Derek sat next to him, nodding at everything like a dashboard bobblehead. Mom was on Dad's other side, occasionally smiling that fake smile she saves for public appearances. Lisa looked uncomfortable, checking her phone repeatedly. The kids weren't there, probably with a babysitter. Kelly hadn't arrived yet. There was also a couple I didn't recognize. Turned out to be Dad's boss, Robert, and his wife, Patricia. Great, an audience. When Dad saw me, he didn't stand up or anything. Just nodded and said, "Well, the prodigal son returns. Thought you might be too busy with your trucks already." Starting with the condescension. I should have walked out right then. I went to sit in the empty chair next to Lisa. But Derek quickly spoke up. "Actually, Marcus, that's for Kelly. You can grab one from another table. This setup is for immediate family and Dad's guests of honor." I looked at him for a second, taking in what he was saying. "I'm not immediate family." Mom jumped in with some bullshit excuse about seating arrangements. I glanced around the table. Everyone was watching like this was some kind of test. Derek had that smug little smirk he's had since we were kids. I pulled up a chair from a nearby empty table, wedging myself between the wall and the corner of their table. The server came by looking confused about the seating arrangement, but didn't say anything. "Just a water for now," I told him. That's when I started noticing things. Dad and Derek kept exchanging these looks. Mom kept mentioning how successful retirement planning is so important. Robert and Patricia seemed completely unaware of any tension, just happy to be getting a free meal. When Kelly finally arrived, she took one look at the setup, raised an eyebrow at me sitting off to the side, and immediately got it. "This feels like a setup," she whispered when she hugged me hello. "Yep," I replied quietly. "Let's see how it plays out." She sat in her seat, though. I noticed no one had actually saved her a spot until I tried to sit there. "Another tell." Then the ordering started. Dad went first, loudly proclaiming he'd have the dry-aged ribeye, $178. Derek and Mom followed suit with equally expensive orders. Derek's wife, Lisa, looked physically pained when he ordered both the lobster tail add-on and the truffle butter. silently mouthing something that looked like, "We can't afford this." Robert and Patricia ordered the surf and turf. Mom made a big show of insisting they get appetizers too. I quickly calculated they were already over $2,200 into this meal. As the food arrived and the drinks flowed, it became increasingly obvious what was happening. Every few minutes, someone would drop a comment about my trucking business, or ask if I was doing okay financially. "Those big rigs must cost a fortune in fuel these days," Derek said at one point. "What are you paying, like $5.50 a gallon?" "Around that," I replied, not mentioning that I had bulk contracts with 4 fuel suppliers. That kept my cost 24% below retail, and a fleet card that gave me another 6% kickback. "Marcus is probably doing better than you think," Kelly interjected. "He's actually— Oh, I'm sure he's fine," Mom interrupted quickly. "Though it must be hard living in that tiny apartment." I almost laughed. I hadn't lived in an apartment for years. I owned a house outright on 6 acres outside the city. $450,000 paid in cash 3 years ago. But they wouldn't know that since none of them had ever visited. My place has a 4-car garage where I keep my weekend car. A 2024 Corvette Z06 I bought as a gift to myself after landing a major contract. A fully equipped home gym and a workshop where I restore vintage motorcycles as a hobby. Currently working on a 1979 Harley Shovelhead that's almost done. But sure, Mom, I'm in a tiny apartment. As dessert menus were handed out, Dad leaned back in his chair, visibly drunk, and announced, "Let's go all out, one of everything for the table." The server nodded enthusiastically and scurried off to put in the order. That's when Derek turned to me with what he probably thought was a subtle look, and said, "By the way, Marcus, we all figured since you missed so many family events over the years, you'd want to handle the bill tonight. Sort of a makeup gift for Dad's retirement." We already told the server, and there it was. The real reason for the invitation. All these years I'd wondered if I was the problem. But this confirmed everything. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a wallet. 4 hours and countless drinks later, the server appeared with a black leather folder. Without hesitation, he placed it directly in front of me. "Whenever you're ready, sir," he said with a smile. The table went completely silent. Even Robert and Patricia seemed to suddenly realize something was off. Dad was staring at me expectantly, one eyebrow raised. Mom had that smile she gets when she's pretending everything is fine. Derek was actually smirking. I picked up the folder and opened it casually. $6,347.83. Nearly 6.4 grand for a dinner. I could have bought a set of Michelin X Multi-Energy Z tires for my entire fleet for that. Just for perspective, $6,347 is what one of my trucks grosses on a good 4-day haul from Atlanta to Chicago. That's 72 hours of operation, 1,100 miles of wear and tear. Fuel costs, driver wages, insurance, and everything else. They blew that amount on a single meal. I closed the folder and set it down in front of me, saying nothing. The silence stretched uncomfortably. "Well," Dad finally said, "are you going to take care of that or what?" I looked around the table. Did anyone here actually ask if I was willing to pay for dinner tonight? Derek scoffed. "Come on, don't be difficult. We all know you've got the cash. Those trucks of yours must bring in something. So because I have money, which by the way I earned by busting my ass for 16 years, in a job you all look down on, I'm automatically responsible for a $6,300 dinner bill that I didn't agree to." Mom leaned forward. "Marcus, this is your father's retirement dinner. Don't make a scene." "I'm not making a scene," I replied calmly. "I'm just asking a simple question. When exactly did I agree to cover tonight's bill?" Dad's face was getting red. "This is ridiculous. Just pay the damn bill so we can go home." I picked up the folder again, looked at it thoughtfully, then set it directly in front of my father. "No." That single word landed like a bomb. Dad's mouth actually fell open. "What did you just say?" he sputtered. I said, "No, I'm not paying for this." Derek jumped in. "You can't be serious. This was the arrangement." "An arrangement none of you bothered to discuss with me," I pointed out. "You just assumed, like you've always assumed things about me." Robert and Patricia were looking extremely uncomfortable now. Robert cleared his throat. "Maybe we should contribute our portion." No, Dad said quickly. "This isn't about you. My son is just being difficult." I leaned back in my chair. "I'm not being difficult. I'm setting a boundary. Something I should have done years ago." Kelly was trying to hide a smile behind her hand. Lisa was staring intently at her empty plate. Mom's voice dropped to that dangerous whisper she used when she was really angry. "Marcus James Thompson, you will pay this bill right now. After everything we've done for you." That made me laugh, actually laugh out loud. "After everything you've done for me. Let's review, shall we? You belittled my career choice for 16 years. You excluded me from family events. You've never once visited my business or my home. Dad, you told your golf buddies I was between jobs when I was building a $1 million company. None of you except Kelly even know what my company does or how successful it's become." Dad started to interrupt, but I held up my hand. "No, I'm not finished. You know what successful retirement planning actually looks like? It looks like the diversified portfolio I started building at 26. It looks like living below your means and investing the difference. Not blowing $6,000 on dinner and expecting someone else to cover it. I pulled out my wallet, dropped $45 on the table for my water and tip, and started walking away. "Marcus!" Mom called after me. "You can't just leave!" I turned back one last time. "Watch me!" The looks on their faces were priceless. Derek looked like he'd been slapped. Dad was turning purple. Mom was doing her shocked Victorian lady routine. As I walked out, I heard the manager approaching the table. The night was about to get even more uncomfortable for them. I made it halfway to my truck before I heard footsteps rushing behind me. It was Lisa, Derek's wife, looking panicked. "Marcus, please," she said, catching up to me. "They really can't cover this." "Derek's been laid off for 4 months. He hasn't told anyone." That stopped me in my tracks. "What?" She nodded, looking miserable. "The credit cards are maxed out. We're behind on the mortgage. Your parents aren't in great shape either. Your dad's retirement package wasn't what he expected. And you thought the solution was to trick me into paying for a $6,300 dinner? It wasn't my idea," she said quickly. "Derek and your dad cooked this up. They figured you wouldn't make a scene in public, especially with Robert there. Why didn't Derek just ask me for help directly?" "Pride," she said simply. "And your dad convinced him this would work." I almost felt bad. Almost. Then I remembered 16 years of snide comments, exclusion and judgment. I remembered Derek telling our extended family that my business was just a phase, even after I'd cleared my first million in revenue. I remembered Dad introducing Derek's kids as his grandchildren, but referring to me as our younger son like I was still a teenager, and not a grown man running a successful business. "Tell Derek he can call me tomorrow," I finally said. "We can talk about a loan." But I'm not going back in there, and I'm definitely not paying for that ridiculous dinner. Lisa nodded rapidly and hurried back to the restaurant. I got in my truck and sat there for a minute. Watching through the window, I could see them all arguing at the table. Robert and his wife were pulling out their wallets, clearly contributing what they could. Rex perked up when I got in, tail wagging slightly against the seat. At least someone was glad to see me. The server was hovering nearby, looking increasingly concerned. The manager had joined him. I could only imagine the scene unfolding. But my son was supposed to pay. Well, he clearly isn't going to. This is outrageous. "Sir, we still need someone to cover the bill." I started the engine and drove away. My phone started blowing up immediately with texts demanding I come back. I turned it off and just drove for a while, feeling lighter than I had in years. Driving calms me, always has. There's something about being on the open road that puts things in perspective. That's why I loved trucking from the start, even when the pay was shit and the hours were brutal. You get time to think, and what I thought about that night was why I'd ever expected anything different from them. They'd shown me who they were over and over. It was time I finally believed them. The next morning, I turned my phone back on to find 19 missed calls and about 32 texts. Most were from my family, but there was one from Robert, Dad's boss, that caught my attention. "Marcus, this is Robert Williams from dinner last night. I got your number from the server. I think we need to talk. There's more going on with your father's retirement than you know." That was interesting. I called him back immediately. "Marcus?" "Yes, thank you for calling back." He sounded exhausted. "Look, I feel like I need to clear something up. I'm not your father's boss. I'm his financial advisor." "What the hell?" "Last night wasn't what your father made it out to be," Robert continued. "He told me it was a family dinner to celebrate your new business partnership with him. Something about you bringing him on as a consultant for your trucking company." I nearly choked. "That's complete fiction. He's never stepped foot in my business." I figured as much. Robert sighed. "Look, I don't normally discuss clients' situations, but given what happened last night, I think you should know the truth. That dinner last night wasn't actually a retirement celebration. Your father isn't retiring. He was fired 4 months ago for misappropriating company funds. They gave him a choice: face criminal charges or quietly resign with no benefits." My mind was reeling. "And the dinner? Your father and brother set it up. They told us you were wealthy and wanted to treat everyone to celebrate a new business venture. We had no idea they expected you to pay until things got awkward. So they lied to you to get you there, then tried to stick me with the bill without warning." Classy. Robert cleared his throat. "There's more. Your father has been making some questionable financial decisions for years. He's essentially broke. The house has a second mortgage. His 401k is depleted and he's got significant credit card debt. He's been telling everyone he's fine, but he's not." After thanking Robert for his honesty, I hung up and immediately called Kelly. "Did you know Dad got fired?" I asked when she picked up. "What? No, I thought he was retiring." She sounded genuinely shocked. "That explains why he and Mom have been selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace, though." "What kind of stuff?" "Mom's jewelry, the riding lawnmower, Dad's golf clubs." I thought they were just downsizing. The more I dug, the worse it got. Derek hadn't just been laid off. He'd been fired for fudging expense reports. Dad had blown through his 401k already. Mom had been telling people I promised to take care of them in their retirement. Pure fiction. They'd been living beyond their means for years, assuming they could eventually guilt me into bailing them out. The dinner was their first attempt to tap the bank of Marcus. I called Tyler that afternoon and filled him in. while throwing a tennis ball for Rex in the backyard. "You've got to be freaking kidding me," he said. "So let me get this straight. They treat you like shit for 16 years, then expect you to cover their asses when their financial house of cards collapses. Classic Thompson family bullshit." He was right as usual. Tyler's been my reality check since high school. When I was considering buying my first truck, he sat me down with a calculator and worked through the numbers with me. When I was thinking about hiring my first employee, he helped me figure out the true cost beyond just salary. And when I dated that crazy woman who keyed my car after 4 weeks, he was the one who said, "I told you she was nuts, but you had to learn the hard way." So when Tyler predicted my family would come crawling back with their hands out, I knew it was just a matter of time. 4 days after the disaster at the Capitol Grill, I got a text from Dad. "We need to talk. Family meeting at our house tomorrow at 6 p.m. No apology, no acknowledgement of what happened. Just a demand for my presence like I was still a kid who could be ordered around." I showed up right on time, pulling into their driveway in my truck. Rex sat alert in the passenger seat. I decided to leave him in the truck again, partly because Mom is allergic, but mostly because I wanted a quick getaway option. The house looked the same as always from the outside, but I noticed the lawn hadn't been mowed in weeks, and Dad's precious Cadillac was missing from the driveway. Inside, they were all waiting. Mom, Dad, Derek, Lisa, and surprisingly, Kelly. They looked terrible. "Have a seat, son," Dad said, gesturing to the couch. I remained standing. "I'd rather hear what this is about first." Dad cleared his throat. "We've hit a rough patch. I'm sure you figured that out by now. The company, well, there was a misunderstanding about some funds, and they decided to part ways." "You mean you got fired for stealing?" I said flatly. His face flushed. "It wasn't stealing, it was an unauthorized loan. I was going to pay back." "You were taking company money without permission. That's the definition of stealing, Dad." "You don't understand the pressure I was under," he snapped. "We had appearances to maintain." "And Derek?" Derek looked up briefly. "Creative accounting. They didn't appreciate my methods." "Creative accounting," I repeated. "So fraud." Derek didn't deny it, just looked back down at his hands. "So now what?" I asked, even though I already knew where this was headed. Mom jumped in. "We thought as family we could help each other out, just until things stabilize." "The dinner was a test," Dad admitted. "We needed to see if you'd step up when needed." I laughed. "A test I apparently failed." "This isn't a joke, Marcus," Mom snapped. "We're about to lose the house. Derek's family might have to move in with us. We need help." I looked around at all of them. "Let me get this straight. You've spent my entire adult life looking down on me for being a truck driver. You've mocked my career, excluded me from family events, treated me like I was nothing. Now that you've screwed up your lives, you expect me to swoop in and fix everything." "You're doing well," Dad argued. "Those trucks must be worth something." "They are. I've built a successful business. Despite all of you, not because of you," Kelly spoke up. "Marcus, they asked me to talk to you too." I told them they were crazy, but they wouldn't listen. I turned to her. "It's okay, Kelly, this isn't on you." Then I addressed the rest of them. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm not giving you money to maintain the lifestyle you think you deserve. What I will do is offer Derek a job." Derek's head snapped up. "A job doing what?" "Driving one of my trucks." The silence was deafening. "You want me to be a truck driver?" Derek finally said, disgust evident in his voice. "Yes. Starting salary is $78,000 plus benefits. Full health insurance, $55,000 life policy. 401k with 4% match. It's honest work, Derek, the kind you look down on." I could see him doing the calculations in his head. $78,000 wasn't his old $95,000. But it was better than unemployment. But to work for his younger brother, doing the job he'd mocked for years. Dad stood up, face red. "This is your idea of helping? Humiliating your brother?" "No, it's my idea of teaching him some humility. Something this family could use a lot more of." Mom was crying now. "After everything we've done for you." "That's the second time you've said that," I noted. "And I'm still waiting to hear what exactly you've done for me, besides make me feel like shit for most of my life." No one had an answer. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "By the way, I paid off your dinner bill at the Capitol Grill." Their faces lit up momentarily. But I continued. "I've filed it as a loan with my company's attorney." I handed the paper to Dad. "Those are the repayment terms. $6,347 plus 9% interest due in full within 30 months. You can make payments monthly, or Derek can work it off at $275 per payment." Dad's hands shook as he read the document. "This is a joke. It's a legally binding loan agreement. My attorney has already filed the paperwork." "You can't be serious," Derek said. "Completely serious. You wanted my money, fine. But you're not getting it for free, and you're not getting it through manipulation." Lisa looked like she might faint. Derek looked like he wanted to punch something. Dad was turning purple. Mom stood up dramatically. "I can't believe I raised such a heartless son." "You raised a son who learned to look out for himself because nobody else would," I corrected her. "And who learned the value of actual hard work instead of shortcuts and schemes." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Derek, the job offer stands." It's honest work that pays well if you're man enough to take it. Call me. And what if we don't pay the loan? Dad called after me. I turned back one last time. Then I'll take your house. It's listed as collateral in paragraph 4. It wasn't, and any lawyer would have thrown out the agreement in seconds, but watching the blood drain from his face was worth the bluff. Outside, Kelly followed me. That was brutal, she said, but she was smiling. They had it coming. Oh, absolutely. So what now, you think Derek will take the job? Not a chance in hell, I replied. His pride won't let him, but he won't find anything that pays as well, especially with a firing for accounting fraud on his record. Rex was watching us through the window, head tilted. Kelly laughed when she saw him. At least you've got one loyal family member. The next day I went back to work like nothing happened. I had 4 contract bids to review, a maintenance schedule to approve, and a potential new driver to interview. 3 weeks later, Derek proved me wrong. He showed up at my office. He looked like hell. I'll take the job, he said, not meeting my eyes. I studied him for a moment. Part of me wanted to gloat, to rub his face in it. But that's not how I build my business. Good, I replied. You start Monday 5 a.m. sharp. I've never driven anything bigger than my BMW, he admitted. We'll put you through training. You'll need to get your CDL. It'll take a few weeks, but we'll get you there. He was relieved and actually thanked me for the first time in his life. After he left, I called Tyler. You're not going to believe this. Derek took the job. Holy shit, Tyler said. Hell must be freezing over. We'll see how long he lasts, I replied. My bet's 4 weeks, Tyler said. Want to put $50 on it? Make it $125. Dad and Mom eventually had to sell their house and move into a small apartment. They still tell family friends that I'm the villain who wouldn't help them in their time of need. That's fine by me. I learned long ago that you can't control what other people think of you. The loan agreement, I never filed it or enforced it. That wasn't the point. The point was showing them they couldn't manipulate me anymore. Derek lasted 4 months as a driver before quitting. I won the bet with Tyler. Those 4 months changed him, though. He gained a new respect for what I do. He found an entry-level engineering job after that, making about half what he used to. Lisa thanked me for at least giving him a chance. Told me he's different now. Over coffee one day, Derek and I aren't close, but we're civil now. He brings his kids over sometimes to swim in my pool and play with Rex. His son thinks his Uncle Marcus's trucks are the coolest things ever. Maybe someday I'll teach him to drive one. Kelly moved into my guest house for a while and opened her own tattoo shop with a small business loan I co-signed for her. She's doing great, booked solid 4 months out, with a growing reputation for custom mechanical designs like the ones on my arm. She paid back the loan in full a year early. Mom still doesn't talk to me much. Dad tries occasionally, usually when he needs something. I keep them at arm's length. As for me, I added 3 more trucks to my fleet last month. Signed an annual contract with a national retail chain. Bought another rental property that'll add $2,100 to my monthly passive income. Business is booming. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd caved that night at the Capitol Grill. If I'd paid the bill, let them keep treating me like a failure who somehow had money. It would have never ended. One bill would have led to another, then mortgage payments, credit card bailouts, loans that would never be repaid. Instead, I held my ground, set boundaries, made them face reality. Tyler still gives me shit about everything. Rex still rides shotgun everywhere I go, and I still don't get invited to family gatherings. And it's the best damn thing that ever happened to me.